Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday on this nice, bright, sunny day.
Good morning.
Good morning. The Committee on the Budget and Government Operations is called to order pursuant to applicable law and my determination that attendance by remote means is necessary because an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent due to the declared public health disaster caused by COVID-19. This meeting is conducted by video conference. We will now have a roll call to establish quorum. Please note that your yes or present response will be deemed a yes vote when this quorum roll call is used as a reference vote for later items on the agenda. Please unmute your microphones. Vice Chair Silverstein. Alderman King.
Present, Chairman.
Alderman Hairston.
Present.
Alderman Sawyer.
Here.
Alderman Mitchell.
Present.
Alderman Harris.
Here.
Alderman Sadlowski Garza.
Present.
Alderman Lee. Alderman Cardenas. Alderman Quinn.
Here.
Alderman Moore. Alderman Curtis. Alderman O'Shea.
Here.
Alderman Brookins. Alderman Rodriguez. Alderman Tabares.
Present.
Alderman Burnett.
Present.
Alderman Irvin. Alderman Taliaferro. Alderman Raboris.
Present.
Alderman Wagisback.
Present.
Alderman Austin.
Present.
Alderman Ramirez Rosa. Alderman Villegas.
Present.
Alderman Mitz.
Present, Madam Chairman.
Alderman Spizzato.
Nick Spasato's here.
Alderman Napolitano.
Present, Madam Chair.
Alderman Riley.
Present.
Alderman Smith. Alderman Tunney.
Present.
Alderman Kappelman. Alderman Osterman. Chairman Dowell's here. We have 20 members of the committee present. We have a quorum.
Alderman Curtis here.
Alderman Curtis, we have you. Thank you. 21.
Alderman Cardona
Okay.
is here as well.
Who was that?
Alderman Cardona,
Okay, Alderman Cardona, we have you. For non-members, we have Alderman Beal and Alderman Cardona. Okay, at this time, we've been informed that there are no callers that have signed up for the public speaking comment period, so we'll move on to the items before the committee. We'll begin with the approval of the May 2022 Rule 45 report, the monthly report, which was sent electronically to everyone. Alderman Irvin, you have your hand up. I see you, and we will count you towards quorum.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
If there are no questions, can I get a motion to recommend approval? of the
Madam
May-
Chairman, if no objection.
Thank you so much. Alderman Austin so moves the approval by the affirmative vote of all members present for the roll call to determine quorum. Hearing no objections, so ordered. We have one item on the agenda this morning. Item number 1 is from the Office of Budget and Management. It's an ordinance concerning an amendment to the annual appropriation ordinance year 2022 within Fund Number 925 for the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. There was a substitute ordinance that's been prepared and was electronically sent to everyone. Can I get a motion to accept the substitute ordinance by the affirmative vote of all the members present for the roll call to
So
determine?
move, Madam Chairman. Alderman Mitz.
Alderman Mitz so moves, hearing no objection, so ordered. The substitute Substitute ordinance is now before the committee and will be explained by Deputy Budget Director Latoya Vaughn from the Office of Budget and Management. We also have department representatives with us today, available to answer any questions that you have. Alderman Smith and Alderman Lee, I see you, and you have been counted for quorum for this meeting.
Thank you.
Deputy Budget Director Latoya Vaughn, you're on.
Good morning, Chairman Dow and the members and non-members of the committee. I'm Latoya Vaughn, Deputy Budget Director here with the Office of Budget and Management. We're going to present some ordinance amendments totaling $6,916,000. The first request is for the Office of Budget and Management. We're looking to reallocate federal grant funds in the amount of $100,000 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Community Development Block Grant Program. These funds are traditionally allocated to provide administrative support to all departments funded under the Community Development Block Grant Program. This reallocation of $100,000 is to support the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities Personal Assistance Program. The Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities is requesting to accept $100,000 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Community Development Block Grant Program. These funds will support personal assistance and homemaker service programs funded under the CDBG program. There are 30 individuals on the waiting list, as well as additional participants that are requesting services in 2022, and these funds will support those requests. The Department of Housing is requesting to accept carryover federal grant funds in the amount of $6,916,000 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Community Development Block Grant. These funds are used to provide grants to repair and replace roofs and porches for 1 to 4 unit properties, owner-occupied households at or below 80% AMI. It is anticipated that these additional funds will allow for an additional 200 repairs. The Department of Public Health is requesting to reallocate federal COVID funds in the amount of $5 million from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for the Vaccine Preventable Disease Program, also known as the Immunization and Vaccines for Children Program. Funds will be used to assist in establishing and maintaining preventive health service programs to immunize individuals against vaccine preventable disease. The Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection is requesting to accept $5 million in federal COVID funds from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for the Vaccine Preventable Program. These funds will be used for the Vaccine Outreach for Employers program to conduct vaccine outreach by providing awareness and educational resources to nearly 60,000 employees who employ 1.4 employees on the benefit of vaccine educational materials, and to inform employees on how to access the vaccine for safe and secure workplaces. That concludes today's ordinance request in the amount of $6,916,000. And we're open for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. To Alderman Ramirez Rosa, I see you and you have been counted towards quorum. If you have any questions about this 925, please put them in the chat. I mean, not in the chat, I don't know what I'm saying. Please raise your hand. Alderman Osterman, I see you. You want to be counted towards quorum.
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Ramirez Rosa, is your hand still up because you have questions?
No, I just wanted to be counted towards quorum, Madam Chair.
I got you. All right, seeing no questions and no hands up for questions, is there a motion to recommend approval of item number 1 by the affirmative vote of all members present for the roll call?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Alderman Austin so moves. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The due pass recommendation of the substitute ordinance will be reported out at the next City Council meeting on Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I just want to remind you that those members who are members of the subcommittee on the Chicago Recovery Plan, we will meet at 10:30. Actually, we will meet immediately after this committee meeting at 10:30. We will be using the same Zoom information, so you don't really have to leave the room. There being no further business before the committee, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Chairwoman. Alderman Wagisback.
Alderman Wagisback, so moves. The affirmative vote of all the members present for the roll call to determine quorum. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The Committee on the Budget and Government Operations is adjourned. Thank you. See you guys at 10:30. Bye. Okay, at this time, we have no one signed up for public comment. But we did receive written public comment from the Chicago Rehab Network and the Grow Greater Inglewood and Sustainable Inglewood initiatives. All of those letters were sent electronically to everyone. I will now turn this meeting over to the Vice Chairperson, Alderman Martin. Alderman Martin.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. Just as a reminder for folks, the subcommittee on the Chicago Recovery Plan, just the committee that's meeting today, has jurisdiction over matters concerning data and reports on the Chicago Recovery Plan's fiscal initiatives and expenditures. This is a subject matter hearing, and we're doing a series of these throughout the year, 6 in total. This is the third, and we will deal with several topic areas in each of the subject matter hearings. There are 13 in total. As a reminder for folks, on February 9th of this year, the subcommittee discussed 2 topics, affordable housing as well as arts and culture. The second hearing was held on April 6th and concerned violence prevention, community development, and youth opportunities. Today is the third hearing, and the 2 topics will be small business and workforce support, as well as assistance to families. This morning, we are joined by several senior members of the city, Budget Director Susie Park from the Office of Budget and Management, Commissioner Maurice Cox from the Department of Planning and Development, Commissioner Brandy Kanazi from the Department of Family and Support Services, as well as Commissioner.
Well, but that's all the stuff that you do, like your whole life.
Alderman Wagisback, would you mind muting, please? Thanks. As well as Commissioner Andrea Chang and Deputy Commissioner Matt Quinn from the Department of Water Management. We will also have some additional members available from the city to help answer questions. And in addition to representatives from the city, we are joined by a group of panelists, as we are with each of these budget subcommittee hearings, to discuss, again, small business and workforce support, as well as assistance to families. Each speaker, we ask that you limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I will be keeping time. We will start with small business and workforce support and then go to assistance to families. We will begin with Yvette Trevino, who is the Executive Director of the Little Village Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Trevino, please begin when you can. You can unmute yourself.
Good morning. Good morning, members of the committee. Again, my name is Yvette Trevino, and I serve as the Executive Director at the Little Village Chamber of Commerce. Just really quickly, some background about the Chamber and Little Village. Little Village, as some of you may already know, is the second highest tax revenue generating shopping district in the city of Chicago, with revenues exceeding $900 million annually. The Little Village Business Corridor is a 2.5-mile stretch on 26th Street with over 1,000 businesses. The business corridor is filled with family-owned restaurants, bakeries, beauty salons, barber shops, grocers, and small retail shops. The mission of the Little Village Chamber of Commerce is to represent the interests of local and small businesses and the much larger bilingual business community of the city of Chicago. Its mission is to support and promote, enhance the growth of success of our local businesses, and leverage the community's assets, contributions, and unique Mexican and culture to generate new business opportunities. Small business, as you know, are the lifeline to our communities. The Latino business community in particular has suffered higher rates of COVID-19, higher levels of unemployment, and is generally recognized as being critically underserved. The Chicago Recovery Plan provided an investment of $67 million to support small businesses by providing grants, and business support services to revitalize commercial corridor support and support new businesses and local artists involved in beautification projects. The Small Business Resiliency Loan Fund, for example, was the largest city-run small business loan fund in the country. It provided a lifeline to nearly 1,800 small businesses and saved over 9,000 jobs. Over 63% of those recipients were low to moderate income neighborhoods. The city also launched a series of grant programs that provided critical support to Chicago small businesses impacted by COVID-19. Like $10 million for the hospitality grant program, which provided $10,000 in grants to restaurant bars, resulting in nearly 1,000 grant recipients in the south and west side of the city, receiving 59% of that funding. Created $5 million in microbusiness grant recovery to help business with 4 or fewer employees, resulting in nearly 1,000 loans made to 36 low to moderate income neighborhoods in the city's south and west sides. Created nearly 10 million Together Now grant program to provide relief to small businesses to recover from COVID-19 impacts and the damage sustained during the nationwide protests and unrest, resulting in over 2,300 grants made in south and west sides businesses, making 61% of that grant funding. Created $25 million vendor impact fund to provide priority access to city vendors certified as MBE, WBE, BBE, and DEBP, people with disabilities. City of Chicago also supported the Shy Biz Strong program, an outdoor dining grant program providing $20 million in grants in over 2,000 small businesses and nonprofits. The biggest challenges that we found were language barriers, technology barriers, immigration issues, and access to one-on-one small business assistance. And the very largely and more commonly seen theme of financial literacy, which included connecting with trusted CPAs, filing business taxes, understanding one's business taxes, reading financial statements, understanding cost and profit margins for products and services, comparing gross profits from one year to the next. And while we did have some business that actually had increased revenues, the cost of goods sold were also increased, which would classify some businesses as ineligible for grant assistance. Our call to action is to continue to support small businesses. You can support small businesses by providing access to capital, business advising, technology, educational programs, but most importantly, by providing community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Trevino. Next, we will hear from, Rhonda McFarland, the Executive Director of the Quad Cities Development Corporation, and do just want to advise committee and non-committee members that we will first be hearing from 6 community leaders, and we will be receiving a brief presentation from the departments, and then we will open it up to Q&A for alder people. Next up, Ms. McFarland. Oh, Alderman Irvin, I see your hand raised. I presume that's to be counted for purposes of quorum. That is noted.
Yes, sir. Thank you much.
Ms. McFarland.
Good morning. Let's see. My speaker's working well? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you. Great.
Okay, great. Good morning and greetings to Chair Dial, Vice Chair Martin, committee members and attendees. I am Rhonda McFarland, the Executive Director of Quad Communities Development Corporation. We serve the 3rd and 4th wards of Chicago. Thank you for allowing the opportunity to address the committee and provide you with some on-the-ground insight from an agency that has been serving small businesses for the past 19 years. QCDC, as we are commonly known, supports over 200 businesses annually with over 100 101 consultations, Since mid-2019, QCDC has curated tenants for over 25,000 square feet of retail space. We've supported over 10 new business startups, produced over 100 small business resource newsletters, and direct business notifications. Our team, frankly, hasn't really had a break since the pandemic started in March because of how important this work has been for our small businesses as well as our community at large. Today, based on time, I'm going to start with a summary of responses to the questions that were presented to me to address, and follow up with a written correspondence to the chair and the vice chair, welcoming opportunities to continue the discussion. As QCDC was founded on convening and collaborating as a primary pillar, I reached out to 5 other executive directors that we partner with that also support small businesses and asked for their reactions to the questions presented and combine them with our team. It's important that our voices be heard as a group of individuals and organizations that work to strengthen not just our individual neighborhoods, communities, but the city of Chicago's small business ecosystem. In summary, our small business community continues to need high-touch, hyper-local, high-quality business support that produces real on-the-ground economic ecosystem outcomes. The need continue the funding, expanding opportunities within funding such as SPIF, NOF, the recovery funding, and consider additional opportunities and additional ways to support small businesses through those opportunities that don't create burdens that block their ability to utilize funding, such as reimbursable upfront, and most importantly, opportunities that use those funds to allow them to build on their credit and build on their wealth. We ask that all city departments continue to and have as a pillar creating, as they create, continue to improve internal systems that the end users are considered. Many changes and upgrades have been made to city programs that have shifted the burdens from cities to small businesses and small organizations. For example, the public way permitting system is one that has gone online, and it creates a significant financial time and technology burden for the end users. We also ask that the city consider incentives that will provide assistance for rental opportunities for commercial and retail property owners as well as business owners, that will allow property owners to consider leasing below market in markets where rents have exceeded the ability of a local small business to afford, as well as incentives in markets where there is a high level of vacancy and we need to promote more commercial on our corridors. What's going well? The MBDC program and the BACP business team that supports that program are fantastic, well thought of. They are partners that approach their work in a partnership with respect for all of its MBDC agencies, and we believe a model. We also believe that the support and the grants that were put out through the pandemic through multiple departments were fantastic. We ask that we now start looking at using those grants in ways, again, that build wealth versus just giving free money, and that promote and strongly encourage business owners to develop their skills and build on their knowledge so that they continue to grow using those grant funds. The communication method that was enhanced during the pandemic out of BACP.
McFarland, I apologize. You are at 5 minutes.
I'm at 5 minutes. Okay.
Just another few sentences, and then that'd be
absolutely great. Okay. Thank you. As I wrap up, I will continue to go back to the city has done a great job across multiple departments There are nuances that cannot be addressed in a 5-minute presentation, which is why I'll provide more detail in writing. As we continue to put out grant and incentive funds, we ask that we look at tweaking those. And most importantly, we ask for true consultation and partnership with the agencies that the city works with under MBDC, under Invest Southwest, under SSA programs, because we do have great knowledge to embark on how to make these processes successful and financially feasible for both the community and the city. Thank you.
Great, and thank you in advance for the additional written information. Last, with regard to small business and workforce support, we're going to hear from Vanessa Stokes. Before I hand it over to you, I see Alderman Harry Osterman here. You will be counted for purposes of quorum. Ms. Stokes is the administrator of SSA 72 and a liaison for the Westside Health Authority. Ms. Stokes.
Well, good afternoon or good morning. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for inviting me. So I am the manager at SSA 72 and the newly formed SSA 77 in West Garfield Park. The service provider for both of those SSAs is Westside Health Authority. And I just wanted to share just the impact of all of the different grants and incentives that it has brought more capacity to build with the community and with small businesses, all of these different programs that the city has created in the last few years, and especially around COVID. So SSA 72 and Westside Health Authority and others from our community have created the pop courts on the corner of Chicago and Lockwood, which has also helped to create other neighborhood vacant lot activations in the city. And those activations, those community spaces are really imperative for us to continue to build with our community, especially on commercial corridors. I just wanted to iterate what the other presenter said in continuing to build, with these resources really helps small businesses, and it helps to create the infrastructure that is needed in communities like Austin and West Garfield Park. That's a huge missing when we don't have those spaces for residents to just to walk to and to get outside and to exercise. I think all of these commercial corridors in communities are really imperative for us to continue to thrive. But that's all I really wanted to share. And just to, just to kind of piggyback off of the other presenters, it's these resources are very much well needed. And going forward to continue to build these commercial corridors, these funds are really important. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Stokes. We'll now be shifting to a discussion involving assistance to families. First, we will hear from Harish Patel, who's the Director of Economic Security for Illinois. Mr. Patel, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Martin, and thank you, Chairwoman Dowell, and for the invitation. I'm the Director of Economic Security for Illinois, and we've had the honor to work with many of you in the city and the advocates to advise the City of Chicago's various cash programs in the past and the current guaranteed income program. As some of you may know, we started doing this work in 2018 with the city. In 2019, we published a report proposing a bunch of various direct assistance programs to alleviate income insecurity in our city because the poverty and inequality was so high at the time. I wanted to sort of congratulate the city on all the work that they have done, because we have seen some reduction in child poverty, as many of you may already know. I also wanted to note that there has been an impressive sort of investment from the city, especially in this past budget, on direct investment and direct cash transfers. And the process so far has been really, really good. One positive that you all may already know is that over 170,000 people applied for the Guaranteed Income Cash Program. That's because the application process was simple. We did targeted outreach as a city. We worked with advocates and many community-based organizations to do that. And so I want to thank all the different people in the city who thought of those partnerships. The second half of that is that 170,000 of those families who applied will not be chosen. But that shows the extremely high need for many of our community, many of our residents for this direct cash. And so one of the things that I would recommend is for us to make this, as you're thinking about the next stage of this, to make this permanent. We know cash works. We know a simple application process works. So I really hope you'll consider making the Guaranteed Income Program and Cash Assistance Program as a permanent structure as part of ways that we can lift up people out of poverty. The second thing that I want to note and propose is that the 170,000 families represent many other families, millions of families that live in the city who we know need support and are in dire need. One thing that we found is there are many existing programs that city and county and the state offer that they just don't know about. I know there is access and awareness public support services that you have proposed. Currently, that's $15 million. I really hope that you would consider investing and making that permanent and actually increasing it, because people who are hard to reach in our city are actually hard to reach. And that requires that they have community voices going to them. The one number that I just want to share with you is that we found out that about 20% of people in our city who qualified for direct checks, the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit, monthly support from the federal and state government do not apply because they don't know of these programs. This is not even city money. So the return on investment for the city is extremely high if we invest in community outreach and uptake, because they will then get the federal and state funds. That would be investment coming into our city that will hopefully not only lift people out of poverty, but also support our small businesses. As we know, people who have money spend money in our community. And the last thing that I would note is that we consider as a city to modernize our benefit system, create a one-stop shop. We learned a lot from this cash assistance program. We made it simple and easy. Could we consider making a one-stop shop for all residents who need benefits? And instead of making them go through so many different applications, I think that would increase uptake and bring more dollars from the federal and state government into our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will be hearing from Dr. Arturo Carrillo, the Deputy Director of Violence Prevention, Neighborhood Health Initiatives, and Clinical Services for the Brighton Park Neighborhood Council. Dr. Carrillo, go ahead.
Hello, council members. I thank you for the invitation to speak to you all this morning. My name is Dr. Arturo Carrillo, Director of Health and Violence Prevention at Brighton Park Neighborhood Council. I am also the co-lead for the Collaborative for Community Wellness. The COVID pandemic has ravaged the most vulnerable communities in the city. While the local community-based organizations like Brighton Park Neighborhood Council and others throughout the city were situated to support community residents, we realized really quickly that we could not do it all. The amount of need was overwhelming. The support of federal relief funds was critical to meet the needs of families in crisis. One thing was abundantly clear from the onset of this crisis: returning to normal was not what we wanted. Normal was not working for low-income families throughout the city to begin with. So the first question asked by many of us was, what are elected officials going to do to build back better permanent structures that can make the city truly equitable? How will the city of Chicago look like after federal relief is spent? It became apparent from the first federal relief meant to provide support to Chicago residents in desperate need that the years of disinvestment in community had gutted public infrastructure that would have been necessary to provide support during a pandemic such as this. We cannot forget when the city council gave full authority to Mayor Lori Lightfoot to spend CARES Act funding at her discretion. She chose to spend $280 million of the $470 million in discretional dollars on the police to do wellness checks. As Alderman Laspada correctly pointed out at the time, how is this work not being done through the Department of quote, how is this work not being done through the Department of Family Support Services, who received only $188,000 of this funding, end quote. DFSS, a department whose name defines its mission to tend to the needs of families and provide support services, was only provided with 0.0004% of the funding, while instead the mayor chose to squander 60% of this funding on police, whose job is not to provide wellness support to families. With nearly $2 billion of ARPA funds available for Aldermen to reimagine what the city could look like in rebuilding the infrastructure of DFSS and other city departments to carry out the work necessary to improve the quality of life of residents of Chicago. The question we are here to ask is what have we done with this money in the 2022 budget? The question is of vital importance. I am here to speak on what else could have been done to address the needs of the residents. We had an opportunity to build a lasting structure of care that would be needed to deal with the impacts of this pandemic and the many that have come before it. I will focus specifically on three areas impacting families throughout the city: the lack of sufficient investment in mental health infrastructure, public health infrastructure, and the lack of housing. After the closure of half of the public mental health clinics in 2012, Mayor Rahm Emanuel's rationale was that residents could rely on private providers, including federally qualified health centers, nonprofits, and others to receive mental health care. This turned out to be a failed policy. The current administration continues to apply the same logic by using ARPA dollars to fund existing private providers with grants that will expire the moment federal relief is exhausted. The Collaborative for Community Wellness pushed for the introduction of a budget amendment that called for splitting $20 million in the mayor's proposed budget to fund the private sector. 27 aldermen joined our call for $10 million to be spent on reopening closed public mental health centers. These centers would serve the communities and families in need of mental health services long after federal relief expires. Mayor Lori Lightfoot opposed this effort. However, Mayor Lori Lightfoot found $12 million to fund a lottery gas giveaway after her political opponent did the same. We were only asking for 10. We can still invest in building up this public sector response to mental health needs and crisis like many other cities have done without involving police. We continue to advocate for this through the Treatment Not Trauma campaign. Also, when the global pandemic hit, it was when Chicagoans first realized how woefully inadequately funded the Department of Public Health was. When federal relief arrived, once again, we relied on the private sector to, instead of rebuilding the public sector, we called for a proposal that was introduced by Alderman Byron Cicho Lopez called Take the Vaccine to the People, which currently sits in the Rules Committee. This would create 2,000 public city jobs through CDPH, would build a public health worker corps, and provide additional resources to FQHCs. For additional context, 30 years ago, CDPH had 2,000 employees in 57 facilities, including 19 mental health centers. Currently, CDPH only has 475 employees in 13 facilities, including 5 mental health centers. Because of the reliance of private providers, vaccine distribution was not done in an equitable manner and cost the lives of 255 Chicagoans, according to research conducted by University of Chicago School of Medicine. We can use ARPA money to expand the capacity of the Department of Public Health and run open and operate city-run health centers that can serve as health hubs for residents of the city. Finally, before the pandemic, many parts of the city were home to communities of working class families that have long struggled with affordability and housing. This pandemic and the resulting housing crunch we are experiencing has only exacerbated this crisis. In Brighton Park, hundreds of families are losing their home because the pandemic has resulted in breadwinners dying or being disabled, not being able to work, and are struggling to pay the rent. This coupled with—
I'm so sorry to interrupt. If you can just wrap it up with a few more sentences, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. BPNC has partnered with IDHS and IHDA to implement their numerous rental mortgage cash assistance programs, but this is not enough. We not only need robust rent and mortgage assistance, but we need free, accessible legal aid for renters, much more than currently exists. We need tougher regulations on landlords so they can't illegally evict tenants. We need affordable housing construction. We need CHA to actually fulfill its mission and build the thousands of units that the city promised that would be built after Mayor Daley demolished public health units. We also need rent stabilization programs to ensure that neighborhoods with multi-unit buildings as well as 2 flats can be made affordable to everyone living in Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carrillo. We appreciate it. Last, we will hear from Kirsten Emanuel, who is the policy manager at Start Early. Ms. Emanuel.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak during today's hearing. My name is Kirsten Emanuel. I'm here representing Start Early, a nonprofit organization based in Chicago that works to advance quality early learning for families with children before birth through their earliest years to help close the opportunity gap. Start Early is one of Chicago's 6 recipients of federal Head Start funds, and we also receive funding from the city's Department of Family and Support Services to administer the state's Preschool for All and Prevention Initiative programs. Using this funding, we provide critical early care and education services to thousands of families with young children across Chicago each year. The Chicago Recovery Plan includes a number of transformative changes that we at Start Early are celebrating. We anticipate that families with young children have and will benefit from the targeted financial assistance, career development supports, and increased access to resources such as school supplies and internet connection. The allocation of $20 million to provide flexible grants for Chicago students and households to cover school supplies, food, and other essentials will provide support to families at a critical time when the federal government is urging states to prepare for the end of the public health emergency and thus the end of many of the temporary provisions that extended and increased access to food assistance benefits, both for families and for family childcare homes. Without the COVID-19 waiver that has been in place, family childcare homes have often struggled to meet the requirements to participate in federal food assistance programs. And these are the childcare programs that are often serving families who are most in need of support. The end of this federal assistance does not reflect the remaining needs, and we urge City Council to continue to keep these needs in mind as we approach the city budget process this coming fall. Compounded with the reality that families with young children and the programs that provide them with essential services are recovering from the pandemic, the early care and learning field needs adequate support and investments now more than ever before. Given the circumstances, we recommend that the implementation of the Chicago Recovery Plan and the upcoming city budget process reflect a greater investment in early childhood services. The city budget line that represents local funds committed to the Children's Services Division within the Department of Family and Support Services was level funded last year. And while the city's early childhood programs received $6.5 million in ARPA funds, that investment pales in comparison to the $213 million in ARPA funds that DFSS has allocated for serving older populations. The city of Chicago is experiencing an early childhood workforce crisis that predates, but was also greatly exacerbated by the pandemic. The Early Childhood Workforce Partnership, which is a group of 19 early childhood employers in the city of Chicago who are seeking better degree pathways for early childhood educators, estimated in 2019 that by 2024, their organizations, which employ educators serving young children in community-based, school-based, home visiting, and family childcare across Chicago, will need 3,000 new educators and additional credentials for 1,000 existing educators whose current roles now have higher degree requirements. This estimate has undoubtedly grown as a result of the pandemic. A direct way to create accessible pathways for new educators is to increase funding for the Chicago Early Learning Workforce Scholarship. Last year, DFSS lost $100 million in Head Start funds from the federal government, putting this scholarship's sustainability in jeopardy at a time when we need an early childhood workforce more than ever, and they need support more than ever. An increased investment of city dollars to the Children's Services Division at DFSS would shore up this risk too and expand the reach of the Early Learning Workforce Scholarship, creating more opportunities for a workforce that is comprised mostly of women of color and serving families who are most in need of support. Chicago's recovery funds can and should also be used to increase compensation for these essential workers who have been on the front lines caring for the children of first responders and healthcare workers since the beginning of the pandemic. The city should consider premium pay or one-time investments in compensation for childcare workers, including center-based and family childcare homes, early interventionists, home visitors, and doulas. We also recommend including and specifically targeting childcare and other early childhood providers who may have incurred financial losses throughout the pandemic as recipients of support for small businesses. This is a bit beyond the subject of today's hearing, but I would be remiss if I did not mention our support for the decision to invest $25 million in the expansion of the Chicago Department of Public Health's Family Connects program, which will soon allow the program to be able to offer in-home nurse visits to all families giving birth in a Chicago hospital. This will connect families across the city with much needed services during their child's first years of life and will undoubtedly save lives by providing critical follow-up services to birthing mothers. Start Early applauds the city's ongoing investment in the Family Connects program. We were also glad to see the level of investment in the Chicago Recovery Plan to fund mental health services and the specific prioritization of specialized services such as early childhood mental health and mental health services for children with developmental disabilities. We want to highlight that mental health, trauma, and substance use services could be applicable to early childhood programs and its workforce as well. This funding could be used to expand access to infant early childhood mental health consultants and to allow early childhood staff to access counseling and mental health services. Thank you for your consideration of these comments, and we appreciate all the work you're doing to support Chicago families.
Thanks very much, Ms. Emanuel. We will now hear from several individuals from the city, we'll be starting with Director Park, then going to Commissioner Cox, Commissioner Kanazi, and finishing with Commissioner Chang and Deputy Commissioner Quinn. So, Director Park.
Thank you, Vice Chair Martin. Oops, I'm gonna share. Let me see if I can share my screen so I can put up the deck. Says it's disabled. Okay. Thank you. So good morning, Chairman Dahl and Vice Chair Martin and members of the subcommittee on the Chicago Recovery Plan. Thank you for allowing me to be here today as we provide an update on our initiatives for assistance to families as well as small business and workforce support. Starting off our presentation, I want to remind members of the subcommittee that all the work that we do, the reports here, the presentations are on this website, that we are trying to create a one-stop shop for various opportunities that are becoming available through the Chicago Recovery Plan. One of the things that my office has been working on is the dashboard. And so, today we will be posting up the beginnings of it, but there is much progress that we are making through the dashboard, and it will be, ongoing as the year progresses. So starting off, the first page, which I'm showing here, is really a summary of the whole recovery plan and the funding behind it. Just a reminder to members of the subcommittee, it was about a $2.5 billion investment. It is a 3 to 5 year program. So, we're really on year one. And so this funding stream will go all the way through, in some cases, 2026. So, again, it has the LFRF, which is the ARP funding, along with the bond. We have about 1.3 billion for essential city services and then 1.2 for various initiatives. We're also providing a breakdown on the different projects. These are the priority areas, these are the 13 that Vice Chair Martin kind of talked about that we're going through. So this provides a breakdown between these two categories that we talked about during the budget. In terms of the actual recovery plan budgets, again, here are the categories. If you click on this, it's going to break down the different initiatives. I know that we'll be talking about some, which we'll be talking about today in each of these sessions. So this will also provide kind of a drill down into within the various priority areas. And then we also provide kind of a breakdown by department so that, as we're presenting and as we talk about each of these projects, that everyone knows kind of who's running them, what are the different components of them, and there's different ways to sort. In terms of the update for this month, as we continue to work through the dashboard and just progress on the CRP, you'll see here, again, it's a $2.5 billion budget. Again, just a reminder, it is, 2022 through 2026. So there's a lot of progress that we're making through that. To date, we have about 836 million that's been either obligated or paid out. We have close to $300 million worth of different RFPs and applications that have also been released in addition to that. So, eventually as this becomes, contracts and agreements are signed, you're going to see this number kind of moving into the obligation. And then we have, what's left for, other work and, more RFPs that are coming out. And also for future years. Again, we're in 2022. The ARP funding goes through, obligations need to be made by 2024, and we have till 2026 to actually spend some of this down. So, this is not a sprint. It's really, over the next 3 to 5 years. But there is, still in this pot, what is available for future years, as well as, more progress that's being made for this year. Here, I won't go through all of the highlights, but these are some of the highlights on the different initiatives that we're working through. This is in addition to, all the RFP work, the compliance infrastructure that we've set up around the ARP funding specifically. for all of the projects that we're funding. We've been working really hard on that while also trying to, speedily get RFPs out, but making sure that we're, crossing all the T's and dotting I's around all of the different regulations that come with all of this funding. What's upcoming on the dashboard? So again, we're going to put the dashboard up today as a start, but there's more to be done. And, we're always open to feedback from the subcommittee. But, we are going to get obligation expenditure data up. Part of this is that we want to show, progress by year so that members of the subcommittee know, this 2.5 billion is across 3 to 5 years. So, what are we anticipating for this year and over the next 3 to 5 years? We also want to be able to provide a status update. I know we're doing these every 2 months, but that's available in a place so everyone can see, for all the different initiatives, where are they, what's coming up. And so we're continuing to work on how we get that up on the dashboard. Outcomes and KPIs, I know that's something that we talked about during budget. And so again, this is data that we are collecting for all of these initiatives and we will start posting. And then also delegate expenditure. So, who is getting the funding and kind of what is that pace looking like and, what is that expenditure looking like? So these are all things that are in progress, all not coming out the same day, but, as rolling the dashboard will be a work in progress. So I just wanted to give members of the subcommittee kind of an update on what's coming ahead. Again, the dashboard and all the other information, the reports that we provide are available on the Recovery Plan website. And, as always, we're open to comments and feedback from members of the subcommittee of how we can improve that. So
Thanks.
with that, oh, yes.
One question, KPI, what does it stand for?
Key performance indicators. So, kind of what are the different milestones that we're looking at? So I know that's something we talked a lot about during budget. And to help show kind of progress. So that's also stuff we're working on right now.
And is there a tentative timeline that you're expecting this subsequent portion of things towards the bottom of this to be able to be integrated within the dashboard?
So all of this is work in progress. So, I think we're hopefully getting ready by the next subcommittee to have the obligation expenditure data ready. I think, some of the status updates. So a lot of this is, a lot of the reports that we're providing each month, like how do we put that in a dashboard that it's not just like a lot of words. So that's something we're continuing to work on and how do we best provide that information. The outcome KPI reporting, that's part of our treasury reporting that we're gonna start working through for this next iteration. So I think, into Q3 is where we're heading for, the last two.
And last question before we hand it over to Commissioner Cox, with that reporting for Treasury, are we as a city already obligated to begin KPI reporting in our quarterly reports that are submitted?
I think there's the Treasury reporting, and this is, for the portion of the funds that are, ARPA funded. There are different outcomes that we are required to kind of track depending on which category the projects fall under. So this is a lot of the background work we've been doing around compliance and how do we set up the infrastructure for all of these projects and what we're tracking. And so, there are different outcomes and different pieces of reporting that we're doing depending on the project and what category it falls under. So that's something we're going to work on and have a little more insight by hopefully this next report, which is due at the end of July.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Alderman Dow and Martin and City Council members. And thank you, Budget Director Hark. I'm actually joined with Deputy Commissioner Mary O'Connor and Nina Edamundia, who directs DPD's Chicago Recovery Plan initiatives. But I just wanted to give you a brief overview of our most recent RFP releases. If you can go to the next slide. The Public Outdoor Plaza, or POP initiative, which we allocated $5 million in American Recovery Plan dollars, is really meant to be a place-based activation strategy to allow some of our local partners to build capacity to build places. And this was direct response really to the civil unrest and the kind of desire for post-recovery reopening across the city. So the idea was to create neighborhood public plazas along neighborhood commercial corridors that would be places to gather, safe, clean, fun, that would literally pop as you pass by. And we successfully have announced 10 awardees. They are receiving up to $500,000 to create these public plazas. In our first round, we awarded 2. And in our second round, we awarded 8 plazas. These are all intended to be under construction or opening this summer or late summer. In the first round, we awarded West Garfield Park and Chatham, the 2 images you see on the screen that will be opening later this summer. And in our second round, we awarded 8 others, and they go from Austin to Roseland to North Lawndale, Bronzeville, Uptown, Woodlawn, Humboldt Park, and Inglewood. We are really, with this program, attempting to grab hold of the summer season. So we opened the round in February. We made our first 2 awardees in the end of March. Then we opened up our second round in March and announced the awardees in June. Really exciting, fun places that give these commercial corridors an opportunity to participate in the kind of increased pedestrian and retail activity on those corridors. If you go to the next slide, we also allocated $5 million in ARP for the Corridor Ambassadors program. And this is specifically, again, it's an outgrowth of the experience we had with the corridor managers in Invest Southwest, that if we could get local organizations the resources, they can have literally ambassadors, people who are recognizable to assist visitors and residents on these commercial corridors. And they are hired from the local communities. We announced the program in May, and now we have 12 awardees, all who have been launched in 10 different community organizations. And these folks who are very recognizable because of their uniforms on the street are working in tandem with our police department, with family and support services, even with the Chicago Public Schools and the Safe Passage, so that there is a welcoming, friendly presence on our commercial corridors. It also obviously increases people's sense of safety, and they know who they can ask, how they can be directed. And this, again, builds the capacity, not just the bricks and mortar and activation, but actually folks, friendly faces on the street. We, as I said, we're moving really, really quickly. We asked for applications in March. We awarded the grants in May, and the ambassadors are being trained and hired and trained and are out as of June. So we're really looking forward to how this is going to help increase a sense of well-being and safety on our commercial corridors. The third item, if you can go to the next, is a program that, again, we're still in the concept phase, and it has to do with storefront activation. What do we do to improve the curbside appeal of these corridors? If there are empty, vacant retail establishments, how do we get something in those storefronts that give people a sense of that the corridor is vibrant, is active? And so for this program, we are in the research phase. We've done a fair amount of research about what other communities have done. Some of it is from temporary storefront displays. Other are super graphics over buildings that are empty, that are trying to find leases. There are a host of things that, again, deal with the fact that some of our corridors have a high vacancy that will not be filled immediately. And many businesses that were once there did not come back from COVID. So we think this is going to be the next layer of a tactical approach to bringing attention to these corridors. The hope is to be able to release an RFP by the end of the summer. And so more to come on that. And if you have thoughts and ideas, I've actually already received some inquiries from different aldermen about properties that they think would be prime candidate for a refresh, even if the property is temporarily vacant. So the next slide is really, we are really blessed to have our Chicago Recovery Team fully staffed. Nina Edamundia is directing. We brought on Sophia Carey, who is our senior project manager, and Munera, who is our analyst. So you can now go to our website and find access to all of these programs, how one applies. I will say that the money we allocated for the POP courts and the ambassador programs, we have completely utilized those resources. They are now out. And our hope is that we will learn something from this, and perhaps next year we might be able to institutionalize this effort as we continue to gauge our success and shape it so that it becomes a permanent part of Chicago's offering for small businesses on commercial corridors. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that was my presentation.
Great. Thanks very much, Commissioner. That was wonderful, especially with regard to what Ms. McFarland and Ms. Stokes shared earlier in terms of the needs. So we'll hold off on questions until the last two sets of commissioners can present. Next up, Commissioner Kanazi.
Good morning,
Sorry,
Chairman.
excuse me, Chairman Dow.
No, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Martin. I was basically putting my hand up so I could be in the first queue of questioning.
That goes without saying. You will be first, and others can go ahead and do so. Thank you, Alderwoman Hairston. And my apologies, Commissioner Kanazi, go ahead.
No worries. Good morning, Chairman Dow and Vice Chair Martin. I'm going to talk about the Chicago Resilient Communities Pilot. That is our cash assistance program. Susie, can you go to the next slide, please? So for this program, we have $31.5 million to provide cash assistance to families. Of that $31.5 million in Chicago Recovery Plan, $30 million will go to 5,000 individuals who will each receive $500 a month for 12 months. The remaining $1.5 million is for administrative costs with our provider, Give Directly, as well as our outreach agencies. Just to give you all some background, if you're not familiar with cash assistance, the goal is to provide really flexibility, choice, and efficiency in providing support to families and households that have been negatively impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. The application, really, in order to be eligible for it, people had to be 18 years or older, live in Chicago. They had to be no more than 250% of the federal poverty guidelines. And so for a family of three, that's $57,000. And then they had to demonstrate economic hardship. To give you all background, the team has been really busy since we passed the budget in October. In January of 2022, we stood up an advisory council of members from the community, as in our nonprofit community, our business community, those with lived experiences. We also had several aldermen participate on the advisory council. In addition, we were able to release 2 RFPs. Those RFPs were released at the end of January. One was for the administrator to build the system as well as administer the payments. The second RFP was for a lead outreach agency. As part of that RFP, we also had niche agencies that were able to respond to the solicitation so that we could get on the ground support for the program. Both of those RFPs were awarded by the end of February, and we were having kickoff meetings the first week of March. Since that time, the application process for the cash assistance project, we had a 3-week window. Applications were open from April 25th through May 13th. We were really busy. There were over 300 in-person assistance sessions. At those assistance sessions, people could get support in up to 30 different languages. We provided materials in 7 different languages, as well as had the application available in 7 different languages. People could apply on their cell phone. We tried to make it really easy for them. They could apply on a tablet, and then we also could take on computers. All of our community service centers and senior centers were open for assistance, and we also partnered with our library partners. Since then, on May 27th, we ran the lottery. And so from a randomization, 13,000 people were selected through that randomized process. And of the folks that were through the randomization, we selected 5,000 people to actually participate in the treatment to receive the $5,000. Over the last 2 weeks, our partner Give Directly, we have started having enrollment sessions for the people that will receive the payment. And so we've had enrollment sessions as well as benefit counseling sessions. Thus far, of that 5,000 people we've contacted, roughly 3,400 individuals have confirmed that they would like to participate in the program. Our goal is that payments will start going out by the end of June. Anyone who signs up and confirms their participation by June 19th, that's Monday, they'll be able to get their payment by the end of the month. Let's go to the next slide, please. Information on the applications that were submitted. As you heard earlier, we received over 176,000 applications. On the first day alone, we received 100,000 applications. And that really just speaks to the need that we found that communities have. We wanted to make sure, even though we received a high number of applications on the first day, that we didn't rest there. And so our teams did a number of things. They met weekly with our outreach partners. We partnered with the university, or Harvard University, and the Government Performance Lab to look at the data so that we could understand where we were receiving large quantities of applications and where we needed to pick up ground. As you can see on the right hand of the slide, the majority of the applications came from the south and west sides of our city, which is not surprising. Second goal of the program was really to make sure that people could complete the application with ease. And so they were able to complete it in under 28 minutes. We know that from other assistance programs that it can take up to 2 to 3 hours to complete an application. Some demographics to just call out for you all is the median household size was 2. The median age was 39, with the majority of people being between the ages of 25 and 44. And the median income was between about $13,500. Additionally, every ward received at least 300 applications that were submitted. And some other details for you all just to note is that 64% of the applicants were caregivers, 70% identified as caregivers, and 78.5% identified as renters. And so this just speaks to the need and the impact that the pandemic has had on our economy. Next slide, please. In terms of households that were selected, again, we have outreach to the 5,000 households that were selected. The selected households looks pretty similar to those who applied. We are now making sure we're going to have 2 things. From this, we'll have a research study. So we'll be working with the University of Chicago Inclusive Economy Lab to study the impacts. We do know that for some populations, including those who are homeless, that it may be harder to reach. And so our teams are just working double time with our provider Give Directly to make sure that they have a little bit more time in July so that they sign up and they know about the program. The other thing is just to note that 74% of people who have been selected for the treatment group of that 5,000 live in a medium or high economic hardship index. Let's go to the next slide. For the evaluation update, as I said, we are working with the Inclusive Economy Lab for the University of Chicago. There are a number of different ways that we're going to study the impacts of cash on this group. One is through an administrative data analysis. We are going to be providing surveys to the 5,000 people that were accepted to be in the pilot, as well as the 7,000 people who are in the control group that will not receive cash assistance. These participants will receive surveys every quarter, and they will be provided with $25 for the treatment group. I'm sorry, $50 for the treatment group and $25 for the control group to complete the surveys. Additionally, there will be 200 interviews that will take place throughout the course of the next year. 150 participants will be from our treatment group who are receiving services, as well as 50 individuals who are in the control group that are not receiving services. Really, we want to study the impacts of, did people's financial situation improve? Do they have economic mobility? And do they have more trust in government, and were they able, really to evaluate how we perform so we can provide future support in the future. I think that's all that I'll share for this. Next, let's talk about 211. Really excited to talk about 211. Next slide, please. Chicago is the only major city in the country that does not have a 211 system. And so to differentiate, most cities have a 311 system, which is for non-essential services, tree trimming, filling potholes, things that are non-emergency needs. Whereas a 211 system focuses on human and social services and is able to be that central location to direct people to various services throughout the city. In our 2022 budget for Chicago recovery plans, we have $5 million to support this. We have had conversations with Cook County, and they have also, they're going to be contributing to the 211 system. And so this will be a Chicago Metro system that will provide support to Chicago and suburban Cook County. We also have $1.5 million in committed funds from private philanthropy in looking at best practices of 211 across the country. We know that the best model is a model that is not led by government and one that has multiple funding sources that are blended and braided. And so this need for 211 really came out of the Chicago Recovery Plan for COVID. In talking with individuals and communities, they felt that when they couldn't come out, they couldn't meet with their social service agencies, they really didn't know where to go. And sometimes navigating and having that digital literacy is really challenging. And so we started having a task group with a number of community leaders to talk about what they would want to see. From that convening, we were able to develop requirements. We worked with the Civic Consulting Alliance to see who would be best positioned to actually run and lead the 211 system. We had conversations with Catholic Charities, the Salvation Army, and the NAMI Mental Health Hotline. They felt that they really weren't positioned. And so we landed with United Way. They run 50% of the 211s across the country. So just a couple things to note that's coming up. The 211 will launch via text by the end of August. And then our goal is that by this October, November, the 211 system will be up and running and be able to provide web and chat services, text services, as well as in-person call services. So thank you. That's my update.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Kanazi. Last but not least, we will be hearing from Commissioner Chang and Deputy Commissioner Quinn from the Department of Water Management. Commissioner Chang, go ahead.
This is Deputy Commissioner Matt Quinn from Water Management. Commissioner Chang is unable to make it. So thank you, Chairman Dow and Vice Chairman Martin, members of the subcommittee, and all other stakeholders on the call. If we could go to the next slide. Water Management is embarking on a $13 million program for water reconnection. to approximately 1,800 locations whose water supply was previously disconnected for a variety of reasons. One thing I'd like to mention is this program is not limited to those 1,800 locations. Anybody that has an issue with water reconnection can call 311 and enter into this program. The program is designed to perform plumbing repairs associated with reconnecting a residential homeowner's water service. The Department of Water Management will do all the necessary infrastructure repairs from the water main to the resident's curb valve to ensure they have water. But what we're finding out is that there are many households that have repairs required to actually turn that water on. They got leaky pipes in the basement, they could have a leak on their water service line, and a lot of our customers don't have the funds to make those repairs themselves. So we felt it necessary to come up with a program to help out with those needs. Next slide, please. We are currently finalizing procurement documents, specifications. We will advertise those documents. Water Management will manage the contractors that will be tasked with completing interior plumbing repairs and basic fixtures, running toilets, drippy faucets, stuff of that nature. If the current customer doesn't have a water meter, we will install a water meter. If their service line is leaking, we will replace the service line. In some cases, we are unable to restore the water because their private drain is defective. As part of this program, we will replace their private drain. That's a big, good point for us because currently we do have the private drain program where we will repair the private drain on the public side, but it is up to the owner to make those repairs on the private side. And those costs could be thousands of dollars, and this program could help try to eliminate some of those costs. And this program will include interior and exterior restoration with the repair work. To facilitate participation by our vendors, diverse contractors, we're dividing into 4 districts as they are listed on the screen. We're hoping to get participation that usually doesn't come with very large scale $100 million projects. So we are dividing this up so we can get a good diverse contractors. Next slide, please. Here's our timeline. We're hoping to get the specification to procurement in the next few days. Once we can advertise, we will do community outreach for this program. One of the things that seems to be a common theme is a lot of our customers are not aware of the programs that we offer. And we will be doing extensive outreach to make sure everyone is notified of this program. We hope to award the contracts in third quarter and start our project in the fourth quarter. And then this is just one more project that we're offering here at Water Management for all our customers in different low-income areas, equity-led service line, replacement of daycare service lines, and our Meter Safe program. And that's all I have.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Deputy. We're going to go to Q&A, starting with subcommittee members and then turning to non-subcommittee members. First up, Chairwoman Dowell.
Thank you, Vice Chair Martin. Just a few questions to Mr. Quinn. You mentioned extensive community outreach. Can you just describe what that looks like from the Department of Water, agency that doesn't typically interface with the community?
A few of the highlights would be bill inserts. So all our customers receive a water bill. They will all receive a bill insert outlining this program. We'll be reaching out to all 50 aldermen to provide information for this program. We anticipate doing some advertisement as well.
Okay, any social media under consideration?
Yes, that is being considered as well on our websites.
No, not on the city website, just something, light and interesting that might appeal to, people who might peruse, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
Yes, DWM does have a Twitter account and Facebook. I will make sure that this program is on those accounts.
Okay, that's my question for water management. For Ms. Kanazi, first of all, I want to compliment you. I think the way you stood up your involvement with community members and aldermen in terms of putting your various programs together is a model I think should be employed by other departments. I am curious about what kind of support services do the 5,000 families receive, those families that are selected to get cash support. What other kinds of support services are you bringing to the table?
Chairwoman Dow, for the support services, so one thing just to know about cash assistance is that support services are not mandated, but one of the things that we have done is we've set up a resource page on our cash assistance site that's tied to the city so that people know all of the resources we have, not just from DFSS, but some of our other departments, including water management, city colleges. We want to make sure people know the vast array, include and even utility billing. Second piece to that is that we still have our 6 community service centers. And so people are still there. We're going to be sending them. What we're working on now is our communication plan for over the next year, right? We're going to be thinking about a blog that we can do where we can share resources for individuals and what people are learning, but also making sure we're sending regular communications, not just to the treatment group that are receiving the $500, but also the people who weren't selected to know about. We have our 6 community service centers and we have case managers that you can walk into. We've also talked around, even Commissioner Chang from Water said, she's got programs that people are eligible for. And so that's part of our next plan once we get the checks out to make sure that people know this isn't the end if you were accepted or you weren't accepted, that the city still has other resources available.
Thank you. I meant to add the non-control group, right? So, or the control group. So thank you very much for that answer. And to Commissioner Cox, the Bronzeville POP site, where is that? Alderman King and I don't know where that is.
I certainly hope my team has informed you, but it is at the Overton School. The Overton School, the activation for their parking lot area was the awardee in Bronzeville.
Okay. All right. The lottery, I'm sorry, one more question for Commissioner Kanazi. Can you tell me, give me a little bit more specifics about the how the lottery was conducted?
Yeah, it's complicated, so I'm just going to preface that. As people were coming in, they were assigned a random number from -4 billion to 4 billion. So it didn't matter when they submitted the application. From there, what Give Directly did is they did randomization, drawing out the highest numbers. And so on a regular basis, whatever that top 13,000 number was would change. At the end, when applications closed, we took the 13,000 individuals that were really ranked based either on economic hardship, right, as well as the FPL levels that were set. We prioritized those. And so then those applications were reviewed and placed in a final lottery to select the 5,000 individuals. And that was the lottery that was run on the 27th when applications closed.
And that was public, was that done publicly?
No, it was done electronically on the system. It was computer generated.
Okay. That's my questions, Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. We will next hear from Alderwoman Hairston, followed by Alderman Laspada.
Thank you. So I only have a couple of questions. One is, who is running the rent relief program? The rentrelief.com that the city is doing for people that applied for rent relief?
I'll jump in, Alderwoman Hairston, and take a shot. So for DFSS, we have the rental assistance program, but it's not rent relief, but that's what we're doing We had about 14 million for rental assistance, and our team has expended about 10 million in it. Hope that helps you. And we're still taking applications. So if people need help, we're here.
Well, I've got people that need help, but I'm just trying to figure out the right program, and it was supposed to be through the city. But I'll talk with you about that line because I have some questions. I've gotten some calls about people that have dialed the number and they had asked to speak to a supervisor and they were told no.
Got it. There's two programs. The DOH also has an ERAP program for rental assistance as well. So we can talk about, if you have any issues, I'm happy to jump in.
Okay, I just need to, know where to direct them. And when people have been denied, apparently they just say you're denied and there's no appeal or no explanation. So I think maybe that's something that we can tweak. The other thing is we are relying on a lot on internet access to the website. Those of us on the South Side have unusually slow cable speeds. There was a study done by the University of Chicago that shows that, when they put our cables in, they give us less speed. And for those people that do not have access, which is still a problem, what are we doing to still make connections with those people? Because those are the ones most in need.
On that one as well, Alderman Hairston, and I have the
great job. Thank you.
And I have the answer to your first question. My team just messaged me. The rent relief program was through All Chicago. That program's closed, and that wasn't through the city. So
that is not through the city.
They said rent relief, and Chris Dennis jumped in. The rent relief program was through All Chicago.
Who is All Chicago?
They are All Chicago is a nonprofit. They run the homeless continuum of care. And so they are a partner that we work with on a number of homeless issues, but they looks like they were leading that program.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And then your second question was about accessibility and digital technology. I think one of the things we learned from cash assistance was just how, that first day we saw 100,000 people apply. And it's like those who know either from social media or from the news or radio ads we did, they were on it. But the harder to serve people, they were not, right? They weren't trusting. They didn't have access. We had to use a number of our outreach workers would use their own cell phones and tablets to get them the email so that they could create an account to apply. Yes. That was probably one of the biggest challenges that we had. We broke T-Mobile on the first day because their internet connectivity just wasn't there for cell phones. And so those are lessons that we learned about, one, applications needing to be in a variety of languages, the font size, and then also just where do people go to access computers when they don't have them in their own homes? We worked a lot with libraries, our own community service centers. And so I think that's something as we go to create programs, it's easier for us, right, to be able to take an electronic application, but it's harder for a number of people, especially those who are undocumented, those who are homeless. And so we're really working with the digital technology group to understand, how do we make sure we don't exclude another population trying to get to an efficiency?
I'm glad to hear you say that. I'd be happy to work with you on that. That also includes our senior population. A lot of our seniors are just not trusting. And, those are very active people. Those are people that, actually really need the assistance. So while we're, moving full speed ahead, I would like to see, us talk with, T-Mobile, Verizon, a lot of those groups and Comcast to find out what they're doing in the neighborhoods or what their plan is to increase the speed, but also that we're really addressing those people that are most in need. That are not, and I'm just talking about, the internet, because most of the seniors are not on Facebook, unless they're looking at, they don't get their news from social media. So
you make a wonderful point. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Next up, Alderman Laspada, followed by Alderwoman Austin.
Hey, thank you so much, Vice Chair. Always appreciate these meetings, always appreciate the collaboration with our community partners in this work and with our departments. I have 2 questions to DPD and 2 questions to DFSS. Commissioner Cox, I was wondering if you could talk to the committee more about the storefront the storefront reactivation program that you were talking about. It sounds really interesting. Maybe if you could share like how we can prepare commercial corridors, entrepreneurs, landlords for applying for that and what makes for a competitive application.
Right. Thank you, Alderman Laspada. And I may ask Director Nina Edamundia to chime in because this is a fairly large amount of funds that we have yet to put into a formal RFP process. It's about 26 million. So it's going to take a lot of shapes and forms, but it really is meant to be targeted toward vacant commercial properties that we have on all of our corridors. And a lot of times, you can attract interest in a property by how its storefront looks, how it's marketed. But we also have an opportunity to do pop-up activities with willing property owners. Again, another way to market their property. So we're very much in the idea stage. So if you have ideas about what's going to work, given the particular commercial corridor that you're referencing, this is a good time for us to get that input. Nina, I'm gonna let you expound on that a little.
Yeah, happy to. So yeah, as Commissioner said, we have an overall idea of the population we need to hit and the types of activations we'd like to support, but we have not finished or created the application yet. And so it's a bit of an iterative problem where we kind of start 30,000 foot up and say, okay, what's the problem? How do we want to attack it? And then we kind of line it up with some of our standardization of our applications that we've been putting out of DPD. So if anything, and of course we can always follow up and have a more finite conversation. If anything, I would just say, some of the feedback that we get about I give about all of our applications is the more information you have, the more partners you have, the more strength that you can show that you have community support. If you have a property owner at the table who will give a letter saying that you actually have access to the site or that you own the site, things like that really make a difference in our scorecards. And we do try to embed equity indicators into our scorecard. So it's not just, who brings the best application, but it's also like, where is the most need and how do we get those resources there? But absolutely, as we actually start finishing that application, we will come back to you all and kind of let you know how that ends up figuring out when it comes to how we score the applications.
Really helpful feedback, and kind of the commissioner's talking points kind of lead into my second question, because the fact is there's not a particular corridor in the first ward that I have in mind from the perspective of, I know that Logan Square is not Market Park. I know that Humboldt Park is not Englewood. I feel like the equity focus of the department is the right focus to put forward. What I would want to understand is where we have additional resources like TIFs, like the SPIF program that could supplement, that could take on some of these grants in meaningful ways to allow you to direct this more limited pot of funding elsewhere. How can we make that work? And I know we've began this conversation online, and I just wanted to follow up with it here. Has the department looked at reopening the SPIF window or reauthorizing funds into some of our SPIFs so that we can essentially take some of that burden, take some of those grant applications off your shoulders?
Sure. No, I think those are good points, and we can continue this conversation. There are other resources that are meant for the more tactical approach, whether it be the open space impact fees, or quite frankly, even the menu dollars, which I know are very, finite. But yes, with regard to SPIF, we came to council and asked for a 3-year allocation, which you granted. Believe it or not, those dollars have actually been expended in many of them. So we would like to come back to council to unleash more of those resources where we saw demand far, far exceeding what we put out. So more to come in terms of SPIF, but of course, SPIF can't be used for temporary activation. So that's part of the challenge. That's a bricks and mortar resource. What you're talking about are the more flexible dollars that allow us to either bring attention to properties or, just give, again, that curbside appeal. So we're very anxious to find these resources that have a greater flexibility so that we can have, we can have more variety of tools to address the issue.
Thank you so much.
I was just going to add, so not only is the CRP team thinking about the short term and getting grants out, but we're also thinking about how we can just improve our DPD processes and applications. So to your point, like with our universal application, people will apply and then we'll decide on the back end. Our underwriters are saying, could this come from the community development grant money, which is bond funded? Is this NOF eligible? Is this TIF eligible? So that the public doesn't have to do that work, but we're working on doing that collaborative work behind the scenes and we're institutionalizing it. So it's not just going to be for this next 3 years and CRP, we come and lead. We're institutionalizing how do we actually get that implemented in all of our processes, SPIF, adopt a landmark, vacant land sales. Like we're working on modernizing all of those scorecards, all of those processes to get to what you're getting at to maximize the value of the dollars that we have. So just so you know, that is also something that DPD is actively working on and you will see improvements over time.
I hear you on that. I really appreciate that. And I think a reauthorization grant around SPIF would find very fertile ground in our city council. I will ask.
Alderman Laspada, can I ask you to do one more question? Round 2, if you would like it.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Oh, I mean, one more. You can have one more right now and then.
Oh, okay. Well, I will be very quick with that one more. To Commissioner Kanaze, I'm curious if you can share, I'm curious if you can share the demographics around the control group in the Resilient Communities Pilot. I understand the need for evaluation for our programs. I am fearful that we are simply going to find that outside of this support, we have a lot of suffering people, which we already know. Can you share more about the motivation behind the evaluation and again, like the demographics of the control group we're looking at?
Okay, great question, Alderman Laspada. So I have the demographics of the folks who submitted applications. And this ties closely back to, actually, let me pull up the document we submitted. Okay, so selected, here are the demographics. And so the race and ethnicity for that, of the people who were selected, 67.7% are Black.
For the control, I'm sorry, for the control, not for the.
So for the control group, I don't have any demographics right now on that group, but I can do a couple of things. I can work with our administrator, Give directly, and I can provide that through the chair.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure thing.
No other questions for now, Vice Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll circle back to see if you'd like a round 2 after we go to non-committee members. And before we do so, Chairwoman Dowell, I think you had a point of information.
I just wanted to underscore what Alderman Laspada says. He's right on point. And I was wondering if Commissioner Cox, if you could address, I mean, we don't need any more short-term fixes out there in the community, especially along our business corridor. Is there a way that you're thinking about making this a long-term program? I heard about the modernization and, cutting out some of the red tape and all that. But how are you thinking about this for a long-term fix?
Sure, I think that's a great question. And as you probably know, we are trying to pilot ideas because, we don't know what's going to work. One size doesn't fit all. And even the creation of the public open plazas, that was a result of an experiment we did last year in Austin, where we spent money to activate a vacant lot, and it turned out to really create an enormous amount of community activity and even businesses that wanted to open up next to this plaza. And so this year, it gave birth to this program, taking advantage of the Chicago Recovery Plan dollars. We are already busy trying to figure out if next year, when we don't have those resources, how do we find the resource to create that amenity? So I guess we're learning while doing, and then we look to our budget director and our annual budget process to see what we can do to institutionalize some of these lessons that we've learned. I don't know if that answers your question, but
it gives me some indication of where you're going. We'll look for you in October.
Absolutely, and again, I haven't cleared any of this with Director Parks, but but the hope is that some of these things that were really that the Chicago Recovery Plan dollars allowed us to do, that we will find interesting ways to make them a permanent part of our annual budget to bring to council.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. We'll now go to non-committee members, starting with Alderwoman Austin and then Alderman Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I don't have a lot, but ones that I do have, because I have the water management and Commissioner Cox and Ms. Cananzi. Is it Cananzi? Am I pronouncing it correct?
Yes, you are. Thank you, Alderwoman.
All right. So does any of your services tie into our existing service like weatherization?
Alderwoman Austin, is that for me?
Yes.
Okay. So weatherization is through CEDA. At our 6 community service centers, we do make referrals when the application window is open for folks to submit applications directly to CEDA, but we don't administer the weatherization program.
Right, I know that, but that's what I was saying. Do any of the ones that you are offering now, could they tie into any of the weatherization? Because you're trying to restore a home as well as the individual. So that's what weatherization is supposed to help that individual home do. Mm-hmm. So does that help? Does yours tie into any of that?
Not directly like that, but it's definitely a support that if someone needs assistance, we can help them with their application at the community service centers, but there's not a direct correlation. I think you're right? We want to build strong families. We want to build strong homes. We want to build strong communities. And so everything, all of that supports the overall well-being of a program and of a family.
Oh, all right. I'll have to work on that. Now to you, Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
In that same vein, have you thought about in your new adventures of what's in your toolbox now, have you included any schools into that vacant schools? Have you included any of that, especially towards housing? Can we turn any of our vacant schools into a home for veterans, homes for homeless? Because it's hard for any particular community to build just for the homeless. So if we could take our schools and convert them, then would that tie into any of the fundings that you have through our housing program?
Thank you for that question. I must admit, I look at the portfolio of vacant schools as one of the biggest opportunities yet to be tapped during my time. And it's very frustrating to me because I think I know how we could make progress on it. But be that as it may, some things that people have said is there a way, working with the building department, to activate portions of the schools instead of having to marshal all of the resources it takes to renovate an entire school, could you make the cafeteria and their commercial kitchen or the gymnasium? Could you isolate those portions of a school site and get entrepreneurs and community organizations to bring those online, even if the 90% of the school is still mothballed for another day? I know that I think we should be doing that because, you know, it's a big lift to renovate an entire school. But if we could be a little more flexible with our building department, this has to do with fire ratings and isolation.
Right,
and
right.
access. I think we could bring a number of these schools back into service for community purposes. Again, may only be the gymnasium, it may only be the cafeteria, but imagine what that would do for those particular schools. So I have committed to a number of people to try to work on a pilot that where we could adapt this model to get this conversation started. And then of course we have other projects like the one in Inglewood, where a community organization does have control of the school there, and they're turning it into housing and workforce for returning citizens. So big opportunity that I feel we still owe these communities a compelling response.
Well, I have an abandoned school now, which is Cone, and it's a double school. And it's two parts, and it could really be utilized. I have one school, West Pullman, which was turned into senior housing.
That's right.
And I can see that being done at Cone, and in two parts. It could be done for seniors. It could be done for families. It could be turned into an SRO. It's just so many things that it could be utilized for, opposed to just being abandoned.
Well, I agree. And you toured, you took me to the school for veterans in your award, and it was an incredibly impressive outcome, and it's been award winning. And so I would love to identify, even if it's only a handful of opportunities where we could do this.
Okay. Now, in your other program, do the properties, the business corridor, do they have to be vacant? The reason why I'm asking that, because my one big vacant naturally is my old Jewel product parcel. So that's the only large parcel that I could see that I could have, although we have many other smaller ones. But do they all have to be vacant? And the reason why I'm asking that, because I need to be able to utilize the NFO program, because part of the building is vacant and part of it isn't.
Yes, I'm going to ask Nina, who again is still designing our response here, how we might want to approach this.
We are looking at it, and I think there's a bit of kind of how the sausage is made behind the scenes, because there's certain requirements from the Treasury of how populations we have to serve and census tracts that we have to be in and users and all that stuff. So that's why I can't give you a straight answer, but I think we are leaning towards vacancy, like vacancy as the thing that we're trying to use the COVID relief, right? Because ARP funds are for COVID relief. So I think we are going to be leaning towards vacant, but I don't want to give you, that's not a definitive answer. We are still trying to figure out, making sure that we're in compliance with all the things that we need to track for the Treasury, and then also thinking about what is the end user that we're actually trying to help. It might be like a team collaborative where we have like a landlord and a community organization kind of apply together just to ensure that they do have site control. But again, we're not 100% sure, but we will make sure to get that information out and make sure that it's very, very clear who can apply and what type of services they will be able to get.
And just to give you an example, we have currently we are looking at a CVS that was shuttered, a Walgreens that was shuttered, a Save-A-Lot that was shuttered. So this whole question about these national chains that have closed in our community and how we get access to them, we're still trying to unravel this. And we know that if we can, because a lot of times the lease arrangement is completely out of state, this will touch, we think, dozens of our corridors that have seen these big boxes close. And this is not exactly what we thought going in. We were thinking more it's a smaller, retail establishment that's vacant, but then we have these bigger boxes in these communities. So we're trying to unravel how do we use resources to activate them. And currently in our sites is a CVS, a vacant CVS, and a vacant Walgreens, and a vacant Save-A-Lot, which is not what we thought when we were talking about storefront activation.
Yeah, and that's what I got at CVS. Now, my last question, Mr. Chairman, I just need to know from the water department, are they, do they have an overlay to their new project with the Department of Transportation? Because if you're tearing up in one place and the aldermen and the community have utilized their menu to restore, and then you turn around and tear it up. So are you all working together in your new projects?
This is Matt Quinn from Water Management. Yes, we are. We are in constant communication with CDOT. One of the things that will be disruptive is we cannot control where breaks and leaks occur. So if a break or a leak does occur after some menu work was done, starting January 1st, we're going to have to tear up the street to replace that lead service line from the main to the house. So we won't be able to control that. But perfect is today, we have a job on 107th Street. We contacted CDOT, they're paving right there. And we said, hey, give us a couple of days to knock that job out before you start doing the asphalt.
All right.
Yeah, so we're constant communication.
And that's the reason why I asked, because the constituent really don't know. So how are we to address them when I have to say, well, they will repair it when they're through with the water department. And then well, we put it in a month ago, a year ago. So, and it's like, I understand, but we need to get this done first. So, and if you're working collectively with the Department of Transportation, at least I can say, well, it'll be a month or 2 months or whatever the project of the water department is, not transportation's.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you so very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Next up, Alderman Curtis, followed by Alderman Sikcha Lopez.
Thanks a lot, Vice Chair. Matt Quinn, I think you are the perfect person for this program. I'm really excited about this private drain program. I think that this money would be well spent. The only thing is, so will you be the contact person for that particular project?
No, I will not, but you can contact me and I will get a hold of that person and make sure whatever you're requesting is addressed.
Right. Okay, thanks. So, and that's all I had for you. The other thing was, Commissioner Cox, I've been following two Chicago recovery grants for 2 restaurants for 2 months. And that's what I'm talking about, point of contact. No one has called me back yet after all of this time. I'm just waiting. I heard Alderman Harrison say, how do a person know if they are approved, if they were denied? Why were they denied? Is it a reason why they were denied? Can they do something to fix that?
Yep.
I think we know some of these restaurants or businesses a lot more than the people that's actually dishing out the grants.
So, Alderman Curtis, we work with the applicants because, if at first you don't succeed, we really encourage them to try again. And at each step, we go back and work with them to try to improve their application because we have regular calls for proposals. So if there are applicants that you applied and were not successful, can we, after this, please get those? And I want to make sure that Jim Harbin, who is managing that program, reaches out to them. Because really there's no excuse for folks not knowing where they stand. If they've been given the award, then we are checking in with them. We have a project manager who checks in to monitor projects where they are. And if they were not successful but want to improve the application, we also have folks, we have shall we say, consultants, community organizations that are working with those folks. So we've got the mechanism and the tools for no one to feel that they are lost. So I would welcome the names of the folks of the businesses you're talking about, and we can follow up.
Okay, great. So Jim Harbin will be that point of contact.
Yes, he is.
Great. And I'm still waiting on the phone call from you, right? About our other project, housing.
Okay, I'll reach out to you afterwards so that I know specifically which one, because the housing obviously might be something that I co-own with the Department of Housing, Commissioner Navarro.
Okay, that's great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Next up, Alderman Sigcho Lopez, followed by Alderwoman Rodriguez Sanchez.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I just have a few questions. Maybe start with the water department. I think maybe Matt from Water Reclamation. I hear certainly it's critical to make sure that we reconnect some of those 1,800 locations that you mentioned. The other issue that we see in terms of that, in terms of billing, right? Two big issues: one on the water meters, and two is of course on the water debt that a lot of families have. So I just want to check on those other two priorities. Where are we? Is there any update on that? I know that some of that funding may not be available for everything, all the priorities, but I do think that there's other two issues that we see with our constituents, right? The water meter installations, and again, some real serious water debt among low-income residents and some either nonprofits. So wanted to check on that if there's any initiatives on that end.
So the meter save issue is back up and running as part of installing water meters for our residents. That is key in reducing the non-metered water bills, where now customers are being charged for what they use and not access to the system and unlimited usage based on square footage of the property and building size. That's a big program. And as for the billing and high bills for customers, past due debt, we constantly work with the Department of Finance to try to address those issues. We will come out and verify that our equipment is working properly, that if there's any leaks, we can let the homeowner know. We can get that information back to the Department of Finance. And the Department of Finance does have the UBR program, so they can enter customers into that billing relief. And if they're constant on what their current bill is, they will waive that past debt. So that's a great program. They just have to be constant. I believe it's for 1 year, and then their previous debt has been waived. But if you have any, constituents that need help or any specific locations, please send them to me and I get them addressed.
Thank you. Yeah, and maybe through the chair, if we can get, the numbers in terms of, if there was a goal in terms of water meter completion, we can get some of the numbers on kind of what percentage of the goals, what are the goals that we're achieving. I think it'd be good to see the progress, and also in terms of water debt, to see how effective are these water relief programs, because we certainly still have constituents, and definitely I'll work with the department on any specifics. The next one, for maybe with DFSS, a few questions that I know some other colleagues may have a follow-up, but the issue of homelessness is something that we're concerned. We're really grateful of some of the rapid rehousing that program that will be done. I know in some communities like Chinatown, it took some time, but I think the efforts when they're coordinated help. But we're seriously concerned, of course, with rising temperatures, and other challenges. the issue of homelessness has become worse and worse. So my question in terms of the rapid housing program, what kind of allocation, what kind of capacity do we have? And again, well, let's start with that one in terms of the rapid rehousing program. I know there's challenges, but we see, mixed results. Some very successful, but still we need a lot of capacity and the capacity issue. So want to see, what is the allocation and maybe any updates on the rapid rehousing program.
Great, thank you, Alderman, for the question. So with rapid rehousing, we received $35 million in CARES funding last year. Over the last 18 months, we've been able to house 1,700 households with that funding, right? And that's anywhere from 1 to 2 years to keep families housed. In addition, we've received funding to the tune of $20 million in Chicago Recovery Plan that started this year. What we're doing right now is working with All Chicago, who's our program administrator, on those accelerated moving events that you talked about, right? Where we've been able to really bring together partners and be coordinated in terms of delivery of service. So prior to that infusion of cash, we probably housed several hundred people, and it would take a couple hundred days. What we learned, a lot of best practices during the pandemic is how to work smarter, how to be more efficient, more effective, and how to communicate across not just government, but all of our partners. Say all that to say is that our partners, as a lot of organizations are experiencing, are having staffing shortages. And so right now we're working with All Chicago on their staffing plan, because it's not just have a moving event, have an AME, bring people together. We've got to make sure, one, landlord education is really important. In order to, even though you have the money, you still need landlords in order to participate so that we have affordable housing to put people into locations. The second thing is rapid rehousing is one stop. We want to get folks off the street and out of shelter, but we also need more permanent supportive housing. And so that's for the folks that you talked about. Well, some people can use that 1 year or 2 year reprieve to get back on their feet. That's the housing first approach. But we still know that, 80% of people will be okay. 20% of folks still need additional supportive services. And so these are conversations that we're having and programs that we're working on. The state of Illinois just released their homeless plan for the next several years, and there's a lot of good things that are coming. And so I think you're going to continue to see us leveraging the work that we've done, best practices, and see movement continuing for the homeless community. I'd also say for our homeless outreach team, you and city council, other city council members lobbied really hard for us to get additional homeless outreach workers. And we've been able to hire, I think we've got like 2 more left to fill. So all of those things, it's not one tool, it's a number of tools that we've got to implement. And I just thank you for your support.
Thank you. A follow-up question, I think it goes along those lines, and I thank you for the explanation. I know that there's a real need for partnerships. In terms of shelters, right? I know right now, especially with the extreme temperatures, that we're facing, the need for shelter is becoming more critical. Do we have and again, maybe this is also in partnership with DPD, any projections in terms of maybe shelter, there's shelter creation on any units, SROs, right, single room occupancy, because I know as you mentioned, the staffing capacity is growing and growing, and I think that what we're talking about a permanent solution. So in the horizon, any coordination around creation of more single room occupancy units or shelters, in terms of addressing the big need for shelter that we have.
So we will be coming back to the Government Operations Subcommittee to talk about the work that the teams have been doing around shelter creation and the investment that we received. DFSS received about $20 million in home bond funding, and that's for the creation of new shelters. We've been working really closely with the Department of Housing and Commissioner Navarro's team. When we come back, we'll be giving you all some updates on what we're looking at. There are some motels that are for sale that we're looking at. And so I'll come back to this committee with a comprehensive plan. I will say DFSS is just for the first time dipping our toe into building development. So this is new for us. We're social workers and human service workers, but we are definitely expanding our reach and definitely trying to be innovative in how we think about solving the homeless issue and reducing homelessness in Chicago.
Thank you. My final follow-up for DFSS, I think the issue, and maybe again, with coordination maybe with DPD, the issue of food insecurity has been also an issue that keeps on growing. I give you an example, and that's what I think the need for partnership here. We have a pantry here in our community, and at the beginning of pandemic, we're serving 500 families. I think right now we're over 1,500 families per month, and I think the need grows. Any strategy around addressing the issue of food insecurity and also food deserts? I know that this plan, of course, and maybe that connects. The next one will be for DPD on this plan to reactivate corridors, and again, the need for social services. In this case, food insecurity is another one that maybe want to check with you. What are the initiatives, or what are the numbers that you're seeing as far as food insecurity?
Great question. So we continue to partner with the Chicago Greater Food Depository to make sure that we support food pantries across the city. Secondly, through our senior services division, we provide home delivered meals for seniors who are homebound and are not able to come out. We also have 49 congregate dining facilities for older adults that are open through the city that they can come in and get either pick up or sit down with the lunch. And then one of the new things that we'll be piloting, we'll be releasing an RFP for food boxes for older adults and their caregivers. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do. I think we had a conversation about the food pantry in your community with the Department of Housing. And I think, again, we will stay at the table with you for that conversation.
Thank you. The last question, this is for DPD. I think that, is good to see some initiatives that go to reactivate the corridors, commercial corridors. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to also ask in terms of some initiatives I've seen that I think are being welcome in the community about also activities, also for young people and other infrastructure projects that go along that. I know that on the west side you have the skating ring and many other projects that are on the making. Is this also part of the rehabilitation of corridors? What is the coordination in terms of quality of life plans, right? That goes, for economic development, but also for social needs. What is the kind of coordination that goes on in terms of planning, around the quality of life? I've seen that there's many initiatives. So, and also another, some of these initiatives take time, right? So I know for like the SPIF programs and others, and these are year-long application. I think there was another question about how we can, maybe expedite that, but also recognize the need of other activities, especially youth activities. I think the department has done a few of those. So how are they connected and how they're related?
Thank you for the question, Alderman Citro Lopez. I would say that because the initiatives are requests for proposals from DPD to the larger community, we're seeing the full gamut of responses of how people want to activate the corridors. Some of them, some of the open space activation have to do with fitness. So you'll see outdoor fitness equipment or a basketball court or a children's playscape. Others are much more contemplative, tree line, more garden space. But we're actually not telling people what the program should be. They're telling us what the right fit is for their commercial corridor. We're seeing everything from pop-up retail establishments for day markets and container stores. As I said, two things that are more focused towards families with children. And we're simply giving them the resources they need. We aren't actually even telling them where it should happen. We obviously, this is a corridor activation, so that it relies on foot traffic and adjacencies with other businesses. But the community organizations are bringing us their ideas of where these should go. So the 10 that have been awarded were all generated by a local SSA or a delegate agency, or even just a community organization that is present on those corridors.
And Commissioner, in these initiatives, again, is there?
Alderman Chalosa, my sincere apologies. Would it be possible to just put you down as a round two? I want to be respectful of Alderwoman.
Absolutely. No. Thank you, Chairman.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Alderwoman Rodriguez Sanchez, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody that has been here today giving us information about what has been going on. I have one main question for DFSS. Thank you, Commissioner, for working with our office constantly to address a lot of the issues that we have been having with homelessness. I want to be able to understand a little bit better our partnership with Old Chicago and the mechanics of it as it pertains to rapid rehousing. As you know, I have some residents in my community. There's particularly one woman that lost her apartment during the COVID pandemic and has been living in her car. My understanding right now is that we are relying on private landlords to be able to provide the housing, even though the rent is assured because it's going to be paid through the city. But there are still these roadblocks where some of the landlords want to have background checks that are about evictions, or they want evidence of employment, even though the rent has been assured. And I'm having a little bit of a hard time with it because this person, and I don't know how many people are in the same situation that this woman has been waiting now for months after the rapid rehousing event where she was qualified for an apartment. So I am trying to understand what is the capacity that we have right now in order to be able to offer the rapid rehousing work, and what exactly our agreements with Old Chicago are in order to be able to deliver that.
Great question, Alderwoman Rodriguez. And so, yes, All Chicago is our nonprofit agency. So they're a delegate agency. We had a competitive RFP, so they applied for to be the administrator for the program. And so they are the agency that we delegate our responsibility to carry out this work on behalf of DFSS and the city of Chicago. Couple things that we're doing right now. And so we have monthly calls. Somebody's on music on mute. Thank you. We have monthly calls with All Chicago to review their numbers, look at capacity, and make sure that we stay within budget, right? Because the worst thing we could do is commit funds for someone's rent that we don't have. And so we look at a number of things in terms of how many people are we seeing, their capacity, what have you, just to make sure we're all tracking to the same number. What we're seeing right now is we are slowly closing out the funding that we got for that $35 million for CARES and beginning to ramp up the $20 million in funding we received in ARP dollars for rapid rehousing, right? So we want to make sure that we don't cut too many people off because they'll end up back on the street, and that won't be helpful for any of us, but that we can still bring on new households to the program. And so what I've asked All Chicago to do is provide a plan for the summer, right? My goal is to still have AMEs, so accelerated moving events through the summer, but they won't necessarily be at the rate that we saw at the beginning of COVID and what have you. But we're gonna ramp those back up for the fall, because I'm always thinking not just the season that we're in, but what's to come. And we all know we live in Chicago and winter is around the corner, even though today is a very hot day. So that's the first thing about that. I think if you have a particular woman that you have in question, why don't we have a conversation? I can give you a call and we can talk about the situation surrounding this particular client. But you're absolutely right. Landlords can require a background check, right? They can still, require certain, security deposit or, first month and last month's rent in terms of renting their apartment, because even though we're paying and guaranteeing the rent, the lease is in that client's name. And so I think where I always say, support from the alders is really important for folks to say, if you know people who have, additional units that they have available, please consider our homeless clients, because like you said, we've seen significant success, but we know that people still have preconceived notions about who they rent to, and we've got to break down those barriers and stereotypes.
Let me just add very quickly before another question from you, Alderwoman. It's just next month, we're going to be having another subcommittee hearing that will focus pretty intensively on homelessness support. So just wanted you and others to be aware that we can kind of continue along these lines of questioning, especially after you and the commissioner are able to touch base.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Chair. That is very helpful, and I will definitely come back with some more questions. And Commissioner, I mentioned the woman in my ward. I have already been working with the FSS around that. I didn't want to just focus on her. I'm just wondering how often this is happening, right? Because if I do understand that we're relying on private landlords, but that also, gives us the information that we need in terms of the high need that we have of supportive housing and public housing, so that people can actually access that through the government, and it is not up to a landlord if somebody is going to have a roof or not, right? Because we are trying to get people housed. I have one more question, and I can definitely come back for the next hearing. Have we done any work with CHA through this funding?
So we work with CHA. They support our permanent supportive housing. I'll make sure that when we come back for the homeless subject committee hearing next month, that we have answers for you around that, if that's something that you want us to present on as well.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to something else now, but thank you so much, Chair.
Great. Thank you, Alderwoman. I have two quick questions, and then I will pass it over to Alderman Sigcho Lopez if he has one more himself. So my two relatively quick. Commissioner Cox, I was wondering for the 10 places where DPD is looking to do some space activation POP. And apologies if you mentioned this earlier. So we have 10 right now. Is there a specific number that DPD has in mind that it's building towards beyond the initial 10?
Well, we have funding for 10, and we did 2 rounds. The first round happened really quickly, and so we felt it was necessary to do a second round. And in fact, we awarded 8 in the second round. And to do these, they're averaging about $500,000. So for the resources that we allocated, we have awarded those funds. So we haven't specifically designed for another round because they also have to correspond to the season when people are outdoors. So our hope is that if we are successful with these 10 as we were with the first one, that we will come back and try to advance a designated resource for future activations in future years.
Perfect. Who's currently running point on that or helping to run point?
Mary O'Connell, Deputy Commissioner Mary O'Connell is our point of contact.
Got it. And then my second and last question for Commissioner Kanazi. For 211, I think Mr. Patel early on had mentioned a good point about a one-stop shop, and it sounds like 211 is envisioned to be just that, to help get funds not just from the city, but also the state and the federal government, and specifically identifying, hey, these are funds that we're kind of leaving off on the table. Was wondering whether and to what extent information about state and federal supports are going to be part of what folks who are working at 211 are trained up to share information about.
Great question, Alderman Martin. We will be having conversations with the state for them to see the need for this. And so our goal right now is just to stand it up, but this is, no funding is off the table, because I think one is you never know what will happen with, city and county governments and their budgets. And so having sustained continued funding will ensure that we don't stand this up to see it go away in several years once our ARP dollars are no longer with us. In terms of the training for the call takers, being trauma informed is really important for us. We know that people are calling with a variety of needs. The goal will not be to necessarily do away with all of the hotlines that we have at DFSS and in other departments, but see where we can streamline, see how, we can help people answer questions and be prepared when they go to those other hotlines that are doing application intakes. And so it's going to be a lesson of, one, making sure that we continue to understand what the call times are, what the needs are, looking at the data, and then coming back to assess overall, how are we doing and what is the next version as we seek to have, those data meetings with the United Way of how that will go. But definitely will be oversight, definitely will be looking at trauma informed and also hiring people from the community. We have not landed on a location of where that 211 location will be. So more to come on that. But those are just some of the preliminary conversations we're having. The other thing is, the services that people call for won't just be city funded services. So we fund 350 nonprofits at DFSS. That doesn't mean that that's all that should be there, because we know that across the city during COVID, a lot of great nonprofits, small, medium, and large, did wonderful things that don't receive money from the city of Chicago.
Understood. And I think in the coming months, as there's more work done, I think it would be terrific if there's a way that's sensitive to everyone's time, whether it's briefings or some emails, even just some short surveys, reaching out to aldermanic offices to ask what are the types of funding related questions, especially at the state and federal level, that we might be able to share information with you all about. Because obviously 211 call taker, someone who's doing a live chat, they're not gonna be able to keep everything in their head. But I think given the fact that so many folks reach out to our offices, not knowing where else to turn to, I think being able to share with you all as you're standing this up, hey, here are some state and federal related questions that we get, just to make sure that folks are trained up appropriately on that. I think I'd welcome the opportunity to get that information.
I will make a note to get a briefing on the schedule so that we can come back. I think your offices are really important to the work that we do at DFSS. Like I said, I got calls from many aldermen's offices about support for cash assistance program and just being trained on it. So I think that's a great idea, and I'd love to do that.
Great. I see Alderwoman Hairston has her hand raised for round two.
I just have a clarification. So All Chicago is the not-for-profit organization that is a delegate agency for the city?
Yes, great question, Alderwoman. So two things.
Okay.
One is for, our programs, we competitively compete them. So they've applied to be a delegate agency for rapid rehousing. And so we fund them for several programs. They also serve every continuum of care. So large cities across the country have a continuum of care. And so money doesn't flow directly to DFSS from the feds. It flows to the continuum of care. And they are the lead agency for the COC.
Okay. All right, okay, I got it. Thank you.
Got it. And then Alderman Martin, I did have a clarification. Alderman LaSpada had asked about the folks who were in the control group that were not selected. The researchers have said to me, and they've clarified this, that the control group looks very much alike the actual treatment group that we received, that when the lottery was done, we tried to make sure that we kept everything consistent from who applied down to who was selected and who was not selected.
Great. And then Alderman Sucho Lopez, do you have one final question?
Yes, and thank you. I think that you mentioned that I think the briefing about the, we can talk about the trauma informed centers, there an update on that would be helpful. But the question that I had was around digital literacy. I think that one of the questions and concerns that we get from residents, this is among seniors, also homeless and vulnerable residents, is about accessing some of these resources because of the lack of access to technology, right, or internet and so forth. So are there any programs I think that maybe we can coordinate with CHA or, that we on another organizations, right? So that we can reach out to senior builders, homeless residents, because a lot of these opportunities are digital. And I think that there's a gap here. So that's my final question. If there's something out there that we can coordinate because it's a real need. Also for check-ins, right? Senior check-ins, again, with the raising temperatures and other challenges, I think the digital media will be, or digital literacy can be really helpful in connecting, with these vulnerable populations.
Thanks, Alderman Cicho Lopez. Regarding digital literacy for seniors, I think I'm going to start in order of your questions. So at the DFSS 21 senior centers, we do offer digital literacy classes. We have trainers that come in and can teach older adults on how to use their cell phone, either Android or iOS, as well as social media. Some are savvier than others, as Alderwoman Hairston stated earlier. And so that's one. For our young people with digital literacy, we work in their One Summer Chicago as part of some of their curriculum that they receive to make sure that young people have digital literacy. We assume that all young people are tech savvy, not all are, so we support that through our programming. We also partner with MOPD because digital literacy can be a barrier for some people. And so I work closely with Commissioner Arfa on that. We were just doing some things about signage and making sure it had the right font and stuff like that. Lauren's got her hand up, so I'm sure she's going to jump in when I'm done to talk about the work that she's doing with the Chief Equity Officer. In terms of well-being checks during extreme temperatures like this, extreme heat, our team, we post on social media, Twitter, Facebook. We also have signs out. We've been doing a lot of press. So yesterday, Managing Deputy Commissioner Lisa Rodriguez did a presser. I'm speaking to media at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Through our home delivered meals program, we make sure that they provide little flyers to remind seniors about what to do if it's hot, and drivers do those well-being checks as well when they're dropping off meals. The 21 senior centers are open during the day that we're there, and then Garfield is open 24/7 to connect people to shelter after hours. Also, all of our HOP teams, the homeless outreach teams, they're also doing checks for those who are on the street passing out water and trying to get them to come inside and take up shelter. Lauren, I think you want to support me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Commissioner. I'm Lauren Burdett. I'm the deputy for Candace Moore, the Chief Equity Officer. And we have been working really closely with our Chief Financial Officer, Jenny Bennett, and other folks in the mayor's office on launching the Chicago Digital Equity Council, which is the council that's building upon the Chicago Connected program. All of you are probably aware that Chicago Connected was limited to CPS students and their families. And so this is our effort to expand the access to digital literacy and internet and devices to folks across the city. So the council is a collective effort that's bringing community members who are most burdened by the digital divide, as well as organizations committed to eliminating that digital inequity to together to have community conversations. We just had one this morning in Auburn Gresham, actually. And so we're happy to kind of share more information with you about that. If you'd like, we're partnering with libraries and CHA really closely in particular. And we're really excited about kind of all of the effort we're doing this summer. There's a bunch of phases, but I don't want to derail right now. So happy to follow up too.
Great. Okay, I think that does it for today. There being no further business before the subcommittee, Chairwoman Dowell moves to adjourn by the affirmative vote of all members present for the roll call to determine quorum. Hearing no objection, so ordered, the Committee on Budget and Government Operations Subcommittee on the Chicago Recovery Plan is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.